everyone. It's 7 p.m. and I'm going to call this meeting of the Rockford Public School Board to order. We will start with a roll call, please.
Ms. Pearson, Mr. Rollins.
Here.
Ms. McCall.
Present.
Mrs. McCulloch.
Here.
Mr. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Connor.
Here.
Ms. Stanford.
Here.
With 6 present, 1 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now take a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we go any further, I'd like to say thank you to Connor Childers. He works behind the scenes to produce the board broadcast via YouTube live stream and Comcast Channel 20. I'd also like to welcome Superintendent Student Advisory Council Representative Saeed Ishmael from East High School. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. We're going to start the evening by celebrating Rockford Public Schools. So Flynn Middle School is going to share their Flynn Falcon Time. Please come forward.
Good evening. I would like to thank everybody for this opportunity to present to the board and Rockford Public Schools how we are changing what school looks like at Flynn Middle School. The team behind me, and there's others that couldn't make it here tonight, have really done a tremendous job of trying to recreate the wheel coming out of the pandemic, as well as how we do school at Flynn. We have created a 36-minute, 4-day-a-week advisory period that we call Falcon Time. We are really proud of it. It is definitely a work in progress, just being 10 weeks in, but we definitely have seen some results from social emotional learning to behavior to academics. So the first question is the why, of course. Why are we doing this? This is what our teachers said during the summer and what they said during the start of the school year. Why are the students at Flynn Middle School not ready to learn? What can we do to prepare our students to learn? A little bit of research. Now the how. We're going to go through these quick. We have a lot of information to share, so I'm going to let our team talk about that.
Would everybody introduce themselves as they come up, sir? That would be helpful.
I'm Emily Godlewski, and I am an intervention specialist at Flynn.
I am Tricia Scanlon, and I teach 8th grade math at Flynn.
And I'm Corey Schrank, the principal at Flynn.
So last year at the end of the year, we put out to staff, our issue was that students weren't coming in and they weren't ready to learn. We were having a lot of tardies, a lot of absences, a lot of behavior problems that we couldn't figure out a good solution. So when we learned we had this extra time in our schedule, we thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How can we use it? So we kind of came up with this idea of having this time every morning for our students to come in and connect in a small group and build those important relationships with an adult. So we wanted to make sure that our staff had to vote on it, and we wanted to make sure that we were going to get that yes vote. So we wanted to make it as easy on the staff as possible. So we formed a committee. We worked together all summer long, and we came up with lessons. We decided on the 3 areas that were going to be the most important for us: all about myself, all about school, and all about relationships. So we built lessons around all of those 3 areas that really help our our students learn to interact with one another and also learn to appropriately interact with teachers so that they go into the rest of their day ready to go.
And as you can see, we had some goals set. A sense of belonging, daily attendance will increase, office discipline referrals will decrease, and obviously we want our kids to be successful at school. And these are kind of these are the starting points that we came from. And when we did vote, we got 56 yeses. We had one person say no, and 2 people chose to abstain, which we felt was very successful. And so now this is how we do school every morning. We start with a slide that has some sort of a adorable animal on it, and then there's a question, and they can think about it while we're getting ready. We ask them what their number is every single day, and they have the time to tell us in a very small group. I mean, I think the biggest groups are 18, so it's a small group, and we can all together come up with, ways to handle the situations. And at the beginning of the year, there were a lot more 2s, and now we're getting a lot more 4s and 5s.
And that's really nice too, because then if there is a student who's coming in from something that happened at home last night or something on the bus or whatever, we kind of get a feel for where they're starting their day so that we can then address that with them if they are willing, or we can send them to a person that they are willing to talk to. So hopefully they can get that not out of their system, but hopefully they can get that managed enough so that they can go through the rest of their day and have a successful day.
And this is a typical agenda for our 36 minutes. And we do some circle time, and here's some pictures of circle time. There's some of the students you might see in these pictures, and a real quick video. How do I do that?
I don't know.
Oh, look at that.
Circle, what I want to start with is I have this picture from the Peanuts, and I wanted you to look at it, and which Peanut character do you think you most identify with today? Like how you're feeling today? So Charlie, why are you feeling like Charlie today? Okay. Snoopy. Why are you feeling like Snoopy today? He looks cool. Why are you feeling like Charlie today?
Snoopy, because he's goofy. No. I'm not a cartoon character.
So how is your morning going?
Boring? I don't know.
So the results after quarter one. This is what we found, those 4 success criteria measures. Office discipline referrals, we measured in 3 different areas. A little different than last year's code, but we tried our best to match up the different infractions. And as you can see, it's been pretty successful as far as the percentage of kids, students in Flynn, that have not had one of these incidents through 9 weeks. Sense of belonging. I was waiting for this to come out. The window closed on November 4th. Finally got it on Monday. We went up from 8% from last spring to first quarter of this year, the first panorama survey, in just the area of overall how much do you feel you belong at school. So we're proud of that. Attendance, 83% to 91%. From quarter one of last year to quarter one of this year, and 90% attendance rate for just the advisory period itself. The next one is academics. We are very, very close, first quarter to the first semester of last year. Again, those measures, that's how we're going to measure. We're going to report out at least 4 times, possibly 5 times per year to the staff. We belong at Flynn. The shirts say it. Here's our team. It has been a extremely collaborative effort through our planning team, extremely collaborative through once a month training with our ROE partner. We owe a lot to them that have guided us through the work and how to make decisions surrounding this. And now I'd like to introduce two of our students. And if I gave the cards, if you would ask the question, they're going to tell you what it means to them.
I'm Janiyah Sanders, and I go to Flint. I'm Janelle Sanders, and I also go to Flint.
Welcome.
What does Falcon Time mean to you?
To me, Falcon Time is a way to get it out before I go to actual class. It's a way to calm me down, get a breather in, and to relax before class starts.
David?
Yeah, what is your favorite part of Falcon Time?
The circle where we gather up. I learn a lot from my peers about them, about what they're going through, or if they're in a good mood or not. I really enjoy it because it gives me kind of a way to figure them out before the school starts.
Is it any different for you?
Yeah, I feel like Falcon Time is an easier way to start my morning off. So like if I feel like sad or like angry at something, or like something made me mad, or like I'll have a way to calm down, to like release stress, and like what we talk about.
Mike?
Two-parter. What has Falcon Time done for you personally, and what have you observed it's done for others?
It helps me set goals for myself. So if I have something to do throughout the day, I'll try to get it done. And like, I think for others, it also helps them too. So yeah. But like for myself, I personally think that Falcon Time is a good way to help kids if they're going through something, or like they could talk to a teacher or a close who they close with, not just a friend or anybody. Yeah.
Did you have?
9.
Huh? Do you want to speak?
Did you want to respond? No? Any other board members have questions? Awesome. That's brave of you to be here, by the way, and in front of everybody and speaking. Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, on behalf of Flint Middle School and our way to change school, how we do school, we appreciate the opportunity to present this to all of you. If you would like to come out and watch it live, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 9:36. Thank you.
And you skipped Thursday because that's their late start day. Favorite day, I understand, of middle schoolers because they get to sleep in, right? Thank you so much. We're now at the petitions and communication portion of our meeting, when we invite the public to make comment. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you will be contacted in a timely manner by staff. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. And it's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators, or to discuss matters that would be otherwise confidential in such open meetings. 2 names will be called at one time. The one whose turn it is to speak and the person who will speak next. When you are the second person, please come to the front and sit in a vacant chair. That way we'll be able to devote the maximum amount of time to public comment. If you look to your left, you'll see 2 digital clocks. One shows the total time allotted to the public comment. The other shows the total time for each speaker. Thank you for your interest and for your cooperation with our guidelines. We have 4 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Ricky Naylor, and up after Ricky will be Mel Champion.
Good evening. Okay, I guess at y'all's last meeting y'all had, the issue was brought up about this data, comparing these schools, specifically one of your board members compared the data with Peoria. The first thing, what I want to say about Peoria is Peoria's graduation rate is 80%. You guys are 66%. Those gifted schools down there in Peoria are 17% black students. Yours is 3%. So those are the only data that really matters. The other stuff is just some thrown up there. Now, if you don't want to integrate that school, then change it from Thurgood Marshall to maybe Robert E. Lee. That way we'll know what to expect when they go there. Now, this whole thing here to me is just like what we call an ivory tower. You know, an ivory is emphasis on ivory because it's mostly all white. This is what you call white supremacy education, because you guys only believe that only white people can determine what is a good education. Now, if you think that is, then why you got the data you got where you only got 45% of your black students graduating? And also, you guys went out to California and got the ridiculous program to come back here and have this, what you do with these police phone calls, or they go to the house or whatever, and then y'all record that data. That's really not going to really help you. If you guys really want a nice program, look at that program out there in Indianapolis, where the NAACP and all the other people around that community came together to come up with a Black Excellence program to help those students. You guys can't do it because you guys, once again, you rely on all these white students, all these white staff here, and a few hand-picked black staff. That's not enough. And the big thing you made a mistake at when this administration first came in here, they was all white. You cannot integrate a staff later on if you start with all white people. You should have made these people come in and say, we'll integrate the staff from the get-go.
Thank you, Mr. Naylor. Mel Champion followed, by Dwayne Peters.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you again for all the hard work that you do, because I know this work is hard. It doesn't have to be as hard as people sometimes make it. If people would just put the interest of the students first as a priority. At the end of the last meeting I spoke at, some board members spoke after. I personally would have listened to legal advice and not said anything, or possibly deferred to the pending lawsuit. Some commented about the chain of command. It's hard to follow the chain of command when people in the chain won't return an email or a phone call, including the person who made that statement. Someone also said that they were tired of hearing people complain, and instead solutions should be offered. Once again, I have offered solutions. However, it's hard to continue to offer them when the person asking for them will not return emails or phone calls. On Wednesday, I received messages from two different concerned Lincoln Middle School parents. My daughter goes to Lincoln Middle School. They said Assistant Principal Dimke, who was named as an individual in a pending lawsuit, football tackled a child, a baby, a girl, who was about to get into a fight. Is that training to be an assistant principal at RPS 205? Is that in the training? I wonder if any of you have gone to Lincoln Middle School or Auburn High School and inquired about Assistant Principal Dimke and his interaction with students. I have. And I'm going to read some of the statements.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. I'd like to remind people about the guidelines that we've given not to name administrators or board members or staff members or students by name. Thank you. Mr. Peters. And also, I would like to remind you of the guidelines for decorum during the board meeting, and especially the respect we need to give to people who need to speak. And so we will follow through. Could you please give Mr. Peters his time? Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me. I apologize for what I'm going to say, some of the words I use here, but my daughters go to Lathrop Middle School. Recently, we've been having a lot of issues with the bully at her school. Since the beginning of the school, he's been threatening to kill my daughter. He's been punching my daughter. He's been hitting my daughter. He's been telling my daughter he'll kick her ass if she says stuff in school, if she speaks up during class. He's been throwing desks over. Officer Calhoun here has been at site when the school has had to go into lockdown, and nothing's been done. This child has been suspended twice with requests to expel the student. The school district has not allowed it. Recently on Thursday, I had to go in front of a judge to ask for a order of protection for my daughters at this school. Because on Wednesday, this child said in front of my 8-year-old, other school students, and then in front of my 6-year-old daughter, that he was going to force her to suck his nuts. And there was nothing anyone could do about it because he's untouchable. Why are we allowing this at school? From my understanding, the new code of conduct is allowing this. The schools, their hands are tied right now. Why are we allowing violent students to stay in the school right now instead of removing them? I'm fed up. Her emotional security, her physical security are both at risk here. My daughter has an anxiety disorder, which has been just elevated due to this. Her ability to learn at school has been diminished. Her actual success at school has gone downhill. My daughter has gone from a 3rd grade reading level down to a 1st grade reading level. Because of this, she cannot focus. She can't stand to be in school. We need to do something about this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kathy Matson is our last speaker. I would remind people in the audience that if you speak out, that we do have a rule and you will not be welcome at future meetings, so please, can you speak? Be respectful to the speakers. Is Kathy Matson ready to speak? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy Madison. I'm a member of the education team of Eliminate Racism 815. The goal 3 of the education action team of Eliminate Racism is as follows. Students of color, especially African American and Hispanic, will be encouraged to enroll in and be enrolled in advanced placement classes and will receive the support they need to be academically successful. The present Rockford Public School student population is white 26.7%, black 31.3%, Hispanic 30.3%, and Asian 4%. According to the 2021-22 Illinois State Board of Education report card, Rockford students enrolled in AP classes and dual credit reveal that black students are underrepresented in the district. Black students in the AP classes is about 13%, and in dual credit is 24%. It appears the dual credit classes are more effective in enrolling black students. The white, Hispanic, and Asian students' enrollment in advanced programs is in proportion to their population. The state report card data also shows that 75% of freshmen are on track and graduation rate is 66%. For black students, it's 64% on track as freshmen, excuse me, and graduation rate is 53%. Our questions are the following. What does dual credit look like? Is dual credit the same in every high school? How can more black students be encouraged and supported in taking advanced academic programs with the added benefit of increasing the graduation rate? In Eliminate Racism's February 2019 report of research data and best practices, we did recommend 5 district-wide strategies.
Your time is up.
Okay, they're listed briefly, and thank you for the opportunity.
And we do have your comments. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the opportunity for comments for board members. Are there any board members who wish to speak? Mr. O'Connor.
Yep. So I want to at least say thank you to all our veterans. Veterans Day was Friday. We didn't have a meeting. And veterans are important. And thank you for your service. I know we have one veteran on the board, Mr. Rollins, and on the also on the staff, we've got Mr. Dotson Jr., Mr. Bartell, and if I missed somebody, I apologize, but thank you for your service. And we celebrate our veterans at this time of year.
Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I just wanted to address some previous comments that have been made in past board meetings, some of which were alluded to tonight. So we had a speaker a couple of meetings ago say that the Peoria School District was doing so much better than the Rockford School District, and there was a theory raised for why that would be. So I got curious, and I did start looking at the state report card, which is available online. Anybody can look at it. We usually measure statewide, we measure student academic achievement in elementary school based on what's called the IAR. And the two main data points that are measured are ELA, which is English language, and the other is math. And at the high school level, we use statewide the SAT, which is a nationally normed standardized test. And I was kind of scratching my head because at every data point, IAR, both ELA and math, and SAT, both ELA and math, Rockford not only outperforms Peoria, but Peoria had a significantly larger decline during the pandemic than Rockford did. Now, what I did finally see was that where Peoria outperforms Rockford is on the graduation rate. So during this period, and really we've only got from 19 to 22 on this report, Peoria increased its graduation rate by 10%, while its percentage of kids who meet or exceed standards on the SAT, which is the high school level test, declined. So in Peoria, for instance, in school year 2022, 13.8% of kids met or exceeded nationally normed standards on ELA, 11% met or exceeded nationally normed standards on math, but 80% graduated. Now, for those of you who have only recently started coming to board meetings, you may not know that I've said similar things here in Rockford. We do want to increase our graduation rate, and that is a target, and that's a target that we've set for ourselves, but I would like to see us do it the right way. Graduation rates are a data point that are almost entirely within the control of a school district. Unlike nationally normed standards, unlike state norm standards, unlike standardized testing, you can get kids to graduate by lowering your internal standards, by telling teachers not to flunk them, by simply patting them on the head and passing them along. I don't see anything in this data that says that Peoria is increasing their graduation rate the right way. Maybe there's an explanation for this, but I don't see how you graduate 80% of your kids if only 11% meet or exceed standards for math and 13.8% meet or exceed standards for ELA. So that leads us into the next topic, which is the gifted program. So the speaker said that we're violating federal law. We know that's not true because that argument was made during the People Who Care lawsuit. We've actually got a written opinion from the United States Court of Appeal for the Seventh Circuit on this, who said that we're not violating federal law. And I'm guessing that the judges on the Seventh Circuit are probably fairly familiar with federal law. And what they say is that federal law, including the Constitution, the statutes, don't guarantee equal outcomes. You know, what we're supposed to be striving for is equal opportunity. When I first got on this board, I spent a lot of time meeting with community leaders. One of the most valuable people that I met with, drank a lot of coffee was Vanita Hervey, who was one of the plaintiff's attorneys in the People Who Care lawsuit, and a Rockford alderman, and somebody who, beyond that, just knows a lot about education. She's an education advocate. And one of the things that we talked about the gifted program, and she had two asks. She wanted us to do two things that we weren't doing. She wanted us to do universal testing of kindergartners, because at the time, we were asking people to test their kids. And of course, there was a selection bias there. So she wanted us to go to universal testing of kindergartners. She also wanted to see us go to nonverbal testing, because verbal testing, there's an argument, really just rewards early childhood enrichment. We did both of those things. We did it probably within a year of me getting on the board. We've been doing them for a decade. The gifted program is much more diverse than it was before, just not in the way that the speaker wants to see it. In every other measure, it is very diverse. We can't solve every problem in society here. it's not our, I won't say it's not our responsibility. We don't have the resources. There are reasons outside our control why the gifted program looks the way it does. We also know, not everybody that tests into the gifted program decides to take the place, decides to take the seat. We know we've got kids who test into the gifted program who don't take the seat. We know we've got black kids who test into the gifted program who don't take the seat. So one of our board members has said repeatedly, be part of the solution. Don't just talk about the problem, be part of the solution. If we have black kids testing into the gifted program who don't take the seat, be part of the process of convincing them that's a good program. It is a good program. We graduate some of the top kids in the state out of that program academically. We would love to see it become even more diverse than it is, but don't complain, come up with solutions that don't just involve imposing quotas. And the final, my final comment, and I apologize for the length of my comments, but I've got a lot on my mind these days. I share some of the concern of one of the parents who spoke tonight. And I've shared these concerns before, and I'm going to share them again publicly. We only talk about, for the past year, it seems to me, a subset of children in our school district. And there are a subset of children who have really large needs. But we have a lot of other children in the school district too. And my concern is when we only talk about one group of kids, we tend to undervalue the needs of the other kids. And I think people are catching on. I was at a physical therapy appointment yesterday. There were 4 people in the room, me, 2 other patients, and the physical therapy assistant. One of the patients was a high school kid who was a soccer player, I think recovering from a soccer injury. The other was a middle-aged guy. And I'm just doing my exercises. I'm not paying a lot of attention until I start finally figuring out what they're talking about. And the student was a student at Guilford, and she's talking about how there's a fight in school every day. That's what she's talking about. And the physical therapy assistant is just aghast. She can't believe it. And the other middle-aged patient says, yeah, his daughter goes to Guilford, and she says the same thing. I was talking to a doctor several weeks ago, and he just out of the blue tells me about how the fact that he's in surgery, and one of the nurses is telling the other 7 nurses in the surgical suite about how her daughter's nose was broken at Auburn. And his point to me was, that's 7 nurses. They go and talk to their other nurses. They talk to their friends. I've now got a physical therapy assistant and 2 physical therapy patients who are out there. Those people don't come and speak at the microphone, other than the gentleman that we had here tonight, who did, thank you. I kind of wish we'd hear more from them, because when we only hear from one group of people who only care about a certain group of students, we start to get a skewed view of No, actually.
Excuse me. Could you please stop speaking and allow him to
The other thing I'm going to point out is we don't have, all of our discipline packets that we look at are de-identified. They don't even have names in them. We do get certain insights into what's going on when we do see photos of wounds, which unfortunately we see more often than I'd like to see. And every once in a while, just because we don't have names, so to keep straight of who's doing what to whom in group fight situations, we sometimes see videos of group fights. Every photo of a wound I've seen has been a black kid. So here's my question. Who cares about the black kids who are being the victims of violence in our school district? I don't think the white kids are getting hurt. I think the black kids are getting hurt. And so why do we only care about why do we only talk about the kids who are actually doing this? We have to care about all of the kids in our system. We have 28,000 of them. The most kids that we have. And our primary goal is to keep kids safe. We need to provide them with a safe environment in which they can learn.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Are there any other board member comments? I'm going to bring something up that I've brought up before. We have an incredible program called Rockford Promise. And the last few years, one of the issues we've had is that we don't have enough scholarships to give to students. And it's about money. And we have wonderful fundraising, but there's an opportunity there is an opportunity for all of us to participate. Anybody who does any purchasing on Amazon, do you guys remember this one? So one of the things that my husband and I did this last week was to look at the numbers of the amount of money coming in to Rockford Promise from Amazon. I think we're a quarter of the contributions. And my point is, there's a whole lot of other people who use Amazon. All you have to do is go to Amazon Prime and list your fundraising opportunity as being Rockford Promise. I'm sad to say that there's only like $400 that has come back to Promise, and it's a 0.5% of all the purchases. And if we're a quarter of that, there is just such an opportunity. So I would love for our communications department perhaps to get the word out that that's an opportunity for our parents. I don't know how we disseminate that to the schools, but the Rockford Promise program is an amazing program. Too many students, not too many, it's great to have so many students who qualify and are applying. We are no longer doing a lottery. I think the board members know that this year we started interviewing and we're doing a merit base. So I just hate for people to be left behind, and it is so easy just to have your fundraise. I mean, you don't have to do anything other than every time you order, you go to Amazon Prime, and once you're listing Rockford Promise as your recipient, 0.5% of all your purchases will come back to that Rockford Promise. So if somebody could let the city know, if somebody could let the schools know, if somebody in our communication, if we could get it online, whatever we can do to try to get people to sign up would be, I think, helpful for those students. We're now on to items that proceed through the Performance and Monitoring Committee.
We're going to, Ms. McCulloch, we have to do the superintendent's report.
Oh, never mind. I think we have to back up. Thank you, Dr. Jarrett. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I would like to defer my time on the superintendent's report to talk about our International Baccalaureate program. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Saltis and our team. So the floor is yours. I would ask that our speakers continue to present because this is a public meeting. So continue, please. Thank you, Dr. Saltis. You can continue. Again, we would love to have people attending the board meeting. We just ask that people respect the norms of behavior for the meeting. Sure. The floor is yours, Dr. Saltis.
Heather Saltis, Executive Director of Schools, and we're here. Sarah Brenner is the new International Baccalaureate candidate school principal. I'll introduce her in full in a moment. We have a two-part presentation this evening, an update to the board on the work that we've done. In the spring, you approved a strategy to start an International Baccalaureate primary years candidate school, and we'd like to review briefly because I know there are a number of people who are new to the project in the audience and also on the board. It's been March, I think, since we were here last. And then to talk to you about the work that we have done since and what's coming up next that will come to the board floor. Just to remind you, we have a suite of special programs in Rockford Public Schools where we have different philosophies and areas of focus that families may choose based on their family beliefs or interests of their children. The newest will be the International Baccalaureate program. We ask for additional commitments from students and parents and staff as to be part of the program. There are benchmarks for students that we ask them to achieve. So for example, the International Baccalaureate program has a 5th grade exposition that students will have to achieve in order to progress in the program. We have an MOU draft. There will be teachers hired on that will agree to extra training, extra time in the summer on curriculum development, and then increased parent commitment attending a mandatory orientation, and then a parent compact that they will sign for attendance at certain International Baccalaureate events. So all of our special programs have these components, and then of course the expectation that our student outcomes are at or above and approaching at or above the district level and approaching the state level with student outcomes. So I wanted to give you a brief overview and background again of the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program and the program in general for those who may not remember from March or may be new. So what is IB and why IB? Why IB? We have a strategy in the district. We have the system-wide framework, which you've heard about many times, that supports all of our neighborhood schools. In addition to our suite of options that are choice for our families will be the International Baccalaureate program. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but generally it's a transdisciplinary elementary program that offer a world language starting at kindergarten that allow students to learn based on inquiry with transdisciplinary themes woven throughout the day. There are also IB schools in all of our surrounding major school districts. There are many in Chicago Public Schools. We've visited them. We've visited Des Moines Public Schools. Freeport has an International Baccalaureate strand. And we've been talking about this, frankly, for years in Rockford, and we're excited to finally be able to launch our first program on the trajectory. So we're starting with the Northwest Quadrant, as you've heard before, in the spring, looking to attract families and have RPS be the first choice for all of our families in Rockford. We have currently 3 lottery programs: our Montessori program, our two-way language immersion program, and our most recent program is the STEAM Academy at Haskell, which grew from not having a kindergarten lottery to having an extensive wait list, as do both of the other programs. So there's a demand in the community for additional options with the number of students, and we also have about a 20% overlap of students on more than one special programs wait list. An additional positive is that there's an outside accrediting agency that works with us. It's a global program, and having them consult with our school for a couple of years before we become accredited as an International Baccalaureate school is an advantage because it's a national or an international program. So how is this lottery a little bit different from our other lottery programs? Our school that has been identified and the staff and the administration was informed and had some time to ask questions last Thursday is Conklin. The reason Conklin was chosen is because it has a TBE strand, which is a transitional bilingual program, and with the second language being a component of all IB schools, and frankly more than half of them internationally are dual language programs, and some of them even have 3 languages. So it was an added plus, not only because the language is already there in the student population, but also because it will give another choice equity-wise to our TBE students to have an option for a special program without opting out of transitional bilingual services. So we will offer the kindergarten lottery in year 1, which will be next fall, and that will be open to only students in the Northwest Quadrant. This is not a selective enrollment school. There's not a test or an audition. There are some, as I mentioned earlier, some requirements for families as they apply, and so the other schools are listed in the quadrant. To share a little bit about the timeline and strategy we see moving forward, and I believe the board saw a little bit about this in the spring as well, but just to review where we've been and where we're going. So year 1 this fall, we launch our first International Primary Years K-5 school at Conklin. We're setting this up to be kind of the exemplar school, which is why we've hired the principal in advance to do all the training and legwork. Phase 2, in a couple of years, we'll have landed on the middle years, the middle school and high school, where the program will roll up, and we'll roll up first 1 grade at a time in 6th grade, while we'll be dabbling in a couple of high school courses. Similar to AP, we'll roll in a couple of IB courses at the identified high school. Eventually, we'd like to have one and potentially two other primary years programs in either the Southwest or Southeast quadrant or both. The Southeast quadrant currently doesn't have any special programs located there. And the ultimate goal is to have an international baccalaureate diploma program at one high school, which is grades 11 and 12. An international baccalaureate, again, it's a global program designed by heads of universities from all over the globe, where they got together 50 years ago and looking at international applicants said, what would it look like if students if they came to us with a diploma that we knew would make them a good contender in any of our universities, what would that look like? And that's how they came up with the International Baccalaureate Program. I wanted to review with the board the budget that you approved in the spring, and then also some contracts that are going to be coming across the board floor in the near future. So if you remember from the spring, or if you saw in your board docs, just wanted to review, I won't read the chart to you, but kind of our proposal from the spring, worked with our finance department and the IBO organization. And these were the startup costs. And again, some of these are estimated until we hire the actual staff and have the program in place. We're hoping that we would be able to come under budget on many of these items. We have some forthcoming expenses in the next couple of months that you'll be seeing coming across the board floor in contract form. Sarah's already been working pretty extensively with the IBO organization to get these in order. And I think you'll have some resource adoptions, and the application fee, there will be one coming to you in December, correct? And she'll talk more about that in a minute. And then I want to introduce Sarah Brenner to you. Sarah Brenner comes from a neighboring district. She is a veteran principal at more than one building, started the dual language program in a neighboring district, and has most recently been a cabinet member at a neighboring district. So we were very lucky to find someone to be our exemplar school principal next year, and I'm going to let her talk about the next steps moving forward. And then we'll take questions at the end.
Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes this evening to give an update on the work that we've been doing. I am really excited. Special programs is my niche and background, and likewise, my kiddo, my own child, is in a special program in a neighboring district, so I really believe in this work. I'm really excited about it. I think it's an awesome opportunity for our kiddos and families. And so we were, as Heather mentioned, I won't read line by line, but just to give some update on some of the operational entities that we've done previously and or will be forthcoming. We met with Conklin staff last week, and then again will this week. Staff were able to have a brief introduction about the program and likewise get an understanding of what those opportunities could look like. And staff then were able to submit any questions they had to us, and we'll go back with the HR team and myself and Heather to be able to walk through some of those questions now that people were able to see some of the resources and get a feel for what the program could look like and what it might mean for them if they're interested in being a part of the program. Parent communication went out last week. We felt it was really important to meet with the staff first at the identified building, and then after that, parent communication went out and board received communication simultaneous. The website went live at the same time, and we'll pop into that link for just a minute. What we tried to do was create a hub for special programs that'll be further developed later with some of the other special programs similar to the IB here, but really having a common place for both parents and or staff to be able to go to get the information they need. So it gives a very big gist, high-level gist of the program. Likewise, reiterate some of the upcoming meetings for families. There will be 4 in-person meeting options for families. We did it a variety of times. All of them will be in a dual language format since we're catering to our kiddos currently in the TBE program. And likewise, there's information about the application process. There's some resources from the IB organization, but then likewise, we spent a lot of time at the bottom with our internal FAQ of some things that we might know that our families might ask, that other departments have noted. And so those will be things we'll continue to add to as we have our parent trainings based on the types of questions that our parents and or staff are asking. So really, again, just a way for people to go and get some of the information, but likewise, my name and our special program coordinators' contacts are there to help with any of those support needs as well. So just kind of transitioning back to some of the next pieces. Again, trying to really meet with some of our internal folks too about this opportunity. So our Welcome Center, our OPs at our buildings, our principals have that information too. So when families come to them, and they're some of the front lines of that communication, that they're able to support that process as well. After the update today to the board, we'll have an IB coordinator position that will be posted. That is something exclusive to the IB school, and it is similar to the instructional coach model, but with some job description requirements that match what the IB organization entails and requires. And so what's really nice about that role is this person will have a differential or stipend of sorts this year to do some of the planning work with myself. There's required training for the IB coordinator outside of the general staff. They would be able to do some of that virtually. So that's the intent of that role and moving forward in relation to this work. And then after, we'll reconvene with Conklin this upcoming week. And then in the next 2 months, really our primary focus after that will be parent meetings. Again, having those parent meetings both in person as well as we have a virtual option that will be forthcoming. And then along that same timeline, we'll be doing some staffing. All staff at Conklin, if they're interested in applying for the positions, have the ability to do that first before the broader REA can apply. Again, and they're able to have that opportunity for an interview if they feel that this is something that melds with their teaching philosophy, if they're excited about that opportunity. And likewise, we'll spend some time meeting with them to talk about those different commitments, as Heather talked about, that will look a little bit different at the IB school versus a traditional elementary school. So those are just a few of the forthcoming updates. We're doing a lot right now, as Heather mentioned, with the organization, and eventually we'll have a specific contact that I'll work with, the IB coordinator will work with. They'll do a lot of both virtual as well as on-site support. So that's a general operational update of some of the things now. We have a much more detailed plan for the remainder of the entire year, but just wanted to get the board up to date on some of the work we've done thus far and or plan to do in the next 2 months. So.
And one thing I don't think we mentioned is that current Conklin families, especially in this first year, the students currently in K through 4 will have the first opt-in. They will have seats reserved for them if they opt in. They'll have many informational meetings, as she mentioned, and then any seats that would be open after that will be filled by the other 3 schools. And we're working closely with Mr. Phillips and the demographer to make sure that everyone is well informed. That we'll follow the same lottery deadline as the other lotteries. And a week before that, we'll ask our current Conklin families to have made their commitment so that we know how many seats are available. And then moving forward, it'll just be like other special programs lotteries with the kinder.
And we'll try to have computers available for families, so if they are interested in attending the IB school, they can put in their application when they attend the parent meetings, when we have families and resources for them to do that. And like Heather mentioned, we'll have Welcome Center folks there too to help answer and support any of those parent questions in relation to the rezone work.
So it's very exciting for the Northwest Quadrant. All of our schools in the Northwest Quadrant kind of have an upward trajectory going on, so all of our families will have a great choice, but it will be nice to have another non-selective option for them, for both our students who are currently and perhaps some of our students who are not currently enrolled in the district.
Thank you for your presentation. Mike, we'll turn it over for questions.
David?
You may have mentioned this in the spring, and I don't remember it because my memory doesn't work so well anymore. But is there some sort of a timeline to include the phase 2, the MYP program?
Well, we have a loose timeline to give it. It's an exemplar program. That's what we're shooting for. But we need to give it a year to kind of settle in and see the data, and it won't be an official school for 2 years. So our timeline is 2 years after opening. We would roll the 6th grade up, and then so on, and then 7th and 8th, et cetera. And at the same time we're doing that, our timeline would be to identify the high school and dabble in a couple of 9th and 10th grade classes, which are similar to, I don't know if any of you were around to remember when we first brought AP to the district, but you can start with a course here and there, build your groundswell, get more and more teachers trained, and then develop a more complete pathway. So we would do those concurrently, partially because it's fiscally responsible. When you the MYP program is 6 through 10, and you pay one application fee if you've identified both schools at the same time versus 2 separate ones if you do it in tiers. And then it would also provide a cohort with Sarah and 2 other administrative teams to kind of learn together. You're welcome.
Tim?
So I'm pretty supportive of this, and I have been from the beginning, but I also, the one reservation I've expressed is that we've had an issue with special programs in this district in the past where we don't really treat them like special programs. They just end up being like a regular neighborhood school that people bus their kids to. You've mentioned additional commitments for students and parents and a parent compact. I mean, well, and you've given some examples, but the only examples I heard were attending a couple of meetings, and the kids have to agree to like participate in, some, I don't know, capstone project or something you mentioned. But are we going to have general commitments in terms of attendance expectations, behavior expectations? Are you going to have an exit policy that you will actually enforce if kids are not meeting those expectations?
Well, the special programs, as you know, does have an administrative regulation for review and reassignment if they're not meeting benchmarks, but some of those are still to be determined because we're just launching and doing the training. But a parent compact is something that we've talked about, not only for IB, but then including all special programs in that. But attendance and behavior is something that we're reviewing and with legal, because that's obviously something that all of our schools are struggling with as well. So I don't have an answer for that tonight.
And another piece, as far as program commitment, we really want parents to know when they're adopting this philosophy or coming into the program that we would want them to remain for their trajectory of their elementary time, right? So if they come in second grade, they're with us for the remainder, again, for that same commitment to the program and philosophy, and so they're able to go through those grade levels with us as another piece of the application process as well and commitment.
But as it develops, we'd be happy, we plan on coming a couple of times a year to the board for an update, and we'll bring that in as soon as we have that.
Ms. McCall?
Hi, thank you. Could you tell me what was the neighboring district, and does their demographics match those of District 205?
Well, Chicago Public Schools has international baccalaureate schools, many of them, throughout the entire district. I don't have the exact number, so I know their demographics are very similar. Des Moines Public Schools, I could get the demographics for you. I don't know how similar they are.
Thank you.
But they're almost 2 million students worldwide, and I have it written down here, how many schools, in case you asked. If you want to just give me a minute, because it's changing all the time. So 167 countries, almost 2 million students, and I don't have the exact number of schools, but both public and private schools. But if you go to the IBO website, which, do we have it linked to the presentation?
It's on the website with some of the resources for families. I'm not sure if it's on there, but we can get it if needed.
There's a map, and you can locate schools anywhere, but if you'd like more information, just email me or let Dr. Jarrett know, and I can get more information to you.
And you said you're calling Chicago and Des Moines neighboring school districts?
No, not neighboring. We're saying most large school district. Freeport Schools is similar, and they do have a full IB strand in Freeport.
Okay. Mr. Connor?
Yeah, can you remind us what commitments teachers will have, and maybe a little bit about will any of this commitment to the IB change anything about essentially contract terms, because you talked potentially about MOU. So what would that actually mean in the practical
We're
sense?
working on a draft currently with the HR department as well as our union leadership, but some of the pieces are the requirements that are set forth by IB, like teachers annually have to attend a 2.5-day training in relation to IB philosophy, methodology for all positions, like not just your gen ed teachers, but also your PE teachers, music, resource, et cetera. And then likewise, what our hope is to have some curricular planning days set forth after that training, because teachers will need time to work on their curriculum mapping and their resources in alignment with the IB philosophy. Additionally, to that same point, having some structures in place for common weekly PLCs and planning time for teams. Again, so that would be outside of the normal contract current structures that are in place, as well as some support for the mandatory parent orientations and or marketing of the program opportunities with our families, or a few of them that would be different outside of the current contract in the draft MOU.
One of the things I would be curious about, and I I'm sure you wouldn't have it tonight, but how they handle turnover and what turnover is like in the IB schools that are in the Chicago area or wherever, Des Moines, and recruitment for that, because I'm assuming that hopefully this will be a successful program, but would like to hear about the relationship with the teachers, and really I assume that we'll have other professionals in there or people that we've got today, and I'd be curious about their training.
Yeah, I don't know all the specifics for those other circumstances, but to the exact point that you mentioned, that's one piece. I couldn't remember the whole MOU off the top of my head, but we did state that in there that they would give a 3-year commitment to the program for that exact purpose, right? Because we're putting a lot of time and money and training into those folks, and for the kids, that those teachers are the ones that understand that methodology. So that was a piece of it too that I forgot to mention when you brought that point forth.
And I believe in our committee of the whole meeting in December, we'll see those MOUs coming forward from the union, with the union to address all those issues that will be different for staff. I heard about the exit pieces, attendance, and I heard the comment about, what if a student is not being successful? Because it is, correct me if I'm wrong, it is a more rigorous program than our traditional curriculum.
At the high school level, it certainly is more rigorous. At the elementary level, it's just very different. It's an inquiry-based program, which of course we want for all of our children in our system-wide framework. Some of the things like integrated literacy that are in place provide that everywhere. But it does go deeper, and it is an international model. So the commitment is really, or the exit strategy will not have anything to do with really success, but rather things like attendance. That you can measure. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, and it could, right, with any of our programs, if any of our students, like, for example, if a child was in the bilingual program and that wasn't a fit and they weren't doing well, right, working with our building level teams and our MTSS structures to find the right placement that makes them successful and working with those parents. So obviously there still needs to be some of those case-by-case basis situations, right, if we want to match the kids' needs the best way possible. And so those types of things could happen and need to happen for students.
I would just like to say that for years we haven't done a good job of exiting students who are unsuccessful in special programs, and so that's why it's being raised as a concern right from the front end, instead of having the program going and seeing that we're having those issues. So the other question I had, and perhaps you addressed this, and for clarity, all right, Conklin students get the first seats, and then you open it up for the others in the Northwest Quadrant. Is that a first come, first served basis, and as soon as all the 4th grade seats are filled, that's it, and there's a wait list or not, or how does that work?
And talk about the placement, the interest form?
Yeah, so there will be, the interest form will open first for Conklin families. We'll open that as soon as the first parent meeting this Friday. They will get first option, and if all those students want to stay and they do the application and parents attend a meeting, they would be allowed the opportunity to do so. Then in January to March, similar to the kindergarten lottery time frame, we would open the application for the other 3 school sites. And then again would fill seats based on space availability, like if they're in the TBE strand versus the mono strand and those kinds of things. In relation to kindergarten, it would be equal opportunity for the 4 school sites through the lottery program at those 4 schools. And then likewise, if they have a Conklin incoming kinder, but they have a current 4th grader that's already been accepted, that family obviously would get precedence first to have, because they have siblings at the same school.
So I hear you saying that if there are open seats after the Conklin parents fill out their interest forms, there will be a window of opportunity for the other 3 schools, families, to fill that out, and then we will do a lottery for all the open 4th grade seats, I understand, based on TBE versus regular strands. So it's not like everybody has to rush to get in the door and make the first decision, that we're not, it's not for come for
Exactly. There's a large time window. Yeah.
Wanted to make sure I understood for our parents. Okay. That's awesome.
They have the Conklin families have from now until March 1, and the other 3 sites have from the beginning of January through March 10. So all of them, to that exact point, have a lot of time to make the best informed decision.
Including the Conklin parents?
Yes, ma'am.
And all of them any parent from any of the 4 schools can attend any of the 4 informational sessions, plus, or the virtual
That was
session.
well described. And I appreciate the wonderful job you're doing with the rollout and the communication to the families, and really having a plan of how we're going forward with all this. And it has been talked about, as Mr. Rollins said, for years. So it's a great to actually see it come to fruition. Well, sort of before the next election. So since some of us may or may not be here. Anybody else with questions from the board? Okay, seeing no lights, Dr. Jarrett, I'll give the floor back to you.
This concludes my report. Thank you.
Your report that almost wasn't because someone was reading ahead. I apologize for that again. All right, we're now on to items that proceed through the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Is there a motion and a second to approve item 6A, which is the fiscal year 2022 audited financial statements?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. We're now on to the consent portion of our meeting, which includes the items previewed by the board committee chairs during committee of the whole. Those include payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders, airfare, construction pay request log, the Kennedy Middle School pointing and repairs, the pest control services, the HVAC upgrades at Johnson, Conklin, Froberg, Auburn, West View, and Fairview, the advanced network clock PA installation, the resolution abating the tax tier 2 levied for the year 2022 to pay debt services on taxable general obligation school bonds, alternate revenue source, Series 2016 qualified school construction bonds, the digital resource, the Panorama Behavior Analytics, additional licenses for Titan Nutrition Service software, the recurring contract for RSP Associate Annual Enrollment Analysis, the engineering services contract amendment, the memorandum of understanding between RPS 205 and Special Olympics Illinois Unified Champion, an independent speech language contractor, the Boys and Girls Club ARP-ESSER, Music Academy ARP-ESSER, Robin Rocking Consulting LLC ARP-ESSER, the meeting minutes from 10/25/22, contract purchase orders, and Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and second to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any consent items board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Mr. Rollins.
7H.
Those are the upgrades. And anybody else have anything that they'd like to have pulled? I am going to pull 7L. Will the coordinator please call the roll on all the consent items that I have read except 7H and 7L?
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. I'll take a motion and a second for item 7H, the IFB 23-14 HVAC upgrades at Johnson, Conklin, Froberg, Auburn, Westview, and Fairview.
So moved.
Thank you.
Or second.
And second. Thank you. Discussion, Mr. Rollins.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the number for Auburn was a lot higher than I thought it would be. And maybe the scope of work is larger. So the reason I'm asking the question, Mr. Phillips, and you weren't around at the time, but we upgraded the univents at Auburn and Guilford as part of the facilities plan. And there was a lot of discussion at that time about whether we should go ahead and air condition Auburn and Guilford. And we did the univents in a way that we were told, ready for air conditioning. But to air condition the two buildings was going to be, my recollection is, either $1 million each or $1.5 million each. And we were on a very tight budget, and we said, nope, we're gonna skip that because it's not really within the budget. So I've always had that number of $1 million to $1.5 million to air condition Auburn and Guilford in my head, and now I see it's $5.3 million. So is that because we're doing more than just adding air conditioning to the univents, or is the project bigger? I'm sorry, I guess that's the same question.
So I see Mr. Jensen's here, and he may be able to speak more to the actual design. But you know, one thing I will say is obviously pricing is much different now than it was when back in 2014-15 when it was originally looked at air conditioning. But Mr. Jensen, can you talk a little bit to the design of?
Mr. Rollins, in terms of the design, most of what we are doing is in terms of unit vents. And yes, we are doing both air conditioning as well as going in terms of heating and ventilating. The work that we're doing for all of the schools, for Joplin, Conklin, Froburg, Auburn, Westview, and Fairview, we basically went through, and prior to that, and another bid that we approved for Guilford, we actually took a look at it, and we actually then needed to scale back some of the things that we had in terms of design. We originally had thought when we were going through design of some of the other schools that we ought to be able to do more. But in this case, our scope of work is limited just to air conditioning the classroom. So we have not increased the scope of the work. We would have, we're not air conditioning the natatoriums. We're not doing other aspects to it, but those spots that are for student interaction, primarily the classrooms is where we're is essentially where the work is being performed.
So let me just ask it a different way. Is that $5.3 million just adding the air conditioning units to the univents at Auburn? That's all it is? The prices have gone up that much? It was probably really more like 2015 that we were, by the time we were having those discussions.
Well, yeah. Well, in terms of an air conditioning system, say for instance, Guilford is somewhat similar to that. That we actually have to add, in terms of the refrigerant, you add a chiller to it. In some cases, then we may also add electrical systems in order to provide for things as well. So it is not just specifically in the unit itself that you're adding just a coil, but then you have to go through all the piping that brings the chilled water to the unit vents as well.
All right, well, it is what it is. Maybe we're just giving a bad number back whenever we were talking about it last time.
Should have been able to, somebody should be able to dig up that number. I mean, that was part of the whole facilities plan.
We talked about that a lot, so the number stuck in my mind.
I can
and then just the variance of what the work is it different? I mean, we do expect higher prices, yes. You said, that was 10 years, well, not quite.
One thing I would just add is you're probably comparing a fully bid job versus what was probably a very, very imprecise estimate. And that would probably account for some of the differences
I might be wrong, but I think it was an alternate. I think we got it as an alternate and decided not to accept the alternate.
Well, if we could find that it was an alternate, that would be a different situation. But if it was not an alternate, my suspicion is we were probably highly speculative at that time in terms of contemplating what possibly air conditioning could cost without actually having it bid and architecturally designed.
So the answer to his question, though, is the buildings were supposed to be ready for air conditioning and
Well, the unit ventilators may have been installed, but there is infrastructure to get the chilled water to the unit ventilator. So you've got supply and return piping that needs to be installed that wasn't installed as part of the unit ventilator. So the unit ventilator may have been put in place. I can't speak to whether there was a chilled water coil in the unit ventilator or if we're having to add the chilled water. I know at Guilford they had a different coil in the unit ventilator, and we changed that to a chilled water, a water coil versus a refrigerant coil, just because it was going to be a better system. I can look into what was put in place with the unit ventilators, but that's still just a unit ventilator. It doesn't include all the infrastructure to get the chilled water or refrigerant to the. We're also adding the chillers, that additional chillers that needed to be upgraded for the additional square footage.
All right, well, I'm mostly taking away from this. We were probably given a bad number back when we were talking about it.
Okay. Do we air condition our field houses?
We do not.
Do we? Oh,
No,
thank goodness. Okay.
When early on we tried to take a look at it in the first couple of bids when we first came through, we took alternates for air conditioning the field houses, say for East. We elected not to take those alternates and present those to you. And for the designs that we went through for all our future schools, we said that we are not going to be in a position to air condition the field houses. We're gearing our air conditioning for that for the classrooms.
And that is the same with
Yes.
this? Okay. Mr. Connor?
Yeah, I just want to say, number one, I think I recall the same thing, that it was it was a real estimate, and I don't think we did an actual study of it. But what I think, I don't know if we have documentation on that at all, but that would be something. So I think the thing that I would say is I agree with the assessment that we never seriously looked, I don't believe, as part of our plan. And we got, if you will, using a tech term, basically back of the napkin kind of estimates. I don't think we really had that. And the other part is that the vent, I think that was just, even at the time, it was just to save us from really one particular piece of it, as you were saying. It had nothing to do with piping or the systems themselves. So we knew that this would cost us a lot. It's still worth it because we're doing the classrooms, which has been one of the things we've heard both from staff and students and family. So that is definitely worth it. I think the question that I might have, though, is, if I remember correctly, one of the things when we talked about it originally was there was some question about the effectiveness of the air conditioning if we just did the classrooms and not other parts to the building. And I don't know if that was not a good assumption at the time, or is that part of the thinking that we've done on the engineering as we've looked at the details on this?
Well, once again, with our budgets that we are trying to align to, we had to make some decisions. So yes, while a fully air-conditioned building is a superior model, air conditioning our classrooms will be fine. I think we won't see any inefficiencies. Classroom doors should be shut during that time, and so I think we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no green lights, so I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll on item 7, what was it, H.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Additional licenses for Titan Nutrition Service Software. I take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I I actually pulled this because I've gotten very familiar with the Titan software. I had some concerns from parents about the nutritional value of the foods that we're serving our students in the schools. They do meet the federal requirements, but one of the great things about the Titan software, good or not, because you might not want to know the information, is that you can click on a menu item and it brings up the full nutritional value. And so I truly understand the parents' concerns and teachers as well, who have told me we have a lot of sugar in and a lot of sodium and a lot of high calories, and it's no wonder they have some kids bouncing off the walls in the morning after they've had their sugary breakfast. Even what sounds healthy, like a smoothie, is like 400 calories and 53 grams of sugar. We do have some opportunity in our district, some money, to see at this point in time. I'm just going to put this out there for our superintendent and his staff, but we have an opportunity with some of this, our best money. I mean, if we fed our kids better and less sugar, would they A, not eat, or B, be bouncing less off the walls? I don't know. One of the things that I was told that we could do is that is optional right now is the amount of protein we offer at our meals. We could up that. I think there's ways to do that. So I think it's great if you haven't looked at the Titan, the software and some of the foods that we're giving. And the kids, the things that aren't sweet, we hand out like containers of syrup that they can pour over the rolls that aren't real sweet. So kids will figure out a way, right? I don't remember who was on the board when we had the debate over white milk versus chocolate milk, and so we went to white milk, and then the kids didn't drink the white milk. So is it better to have sugary chocolate milk, or if it is a milk and not a drink? But I would love to see a conversation in our nutrition department about increasing the quality of the kind of foods, because those breakfast and lunch are, for some of our kids, their main meals of the day because because of what we're providing. So that's why I pulled it, just to kind of talk a little bit about the software. Mr. Connor. And there are darn Pop-Tarts all over on that.
So I got 2 points. One is, I assume we're talking about the software here, right? So the software clearly has value. That would be the point. This is really, we should have a discussion about nutrition. That's always something that I'm going to point out for the 100th time that I can't remember. It was at least 4 years ago, maybe 5, that I complained because I had a wife that was a para, and she said that Pop-Tarts are not good for kids. Hello? And I got roundly criticized, if I might say so, and laughed at. So all I can say is I'm glad that other board members are looking at this. This is a serious topic. And one of the things I'll say is, if we have a software system that supports analysis, my point would be we should be using that analysis to see what we've got, the content of it, the nutritional value, and then I don't know if we can't, because of privacy and all that, we couldn't tie it to health or anything, but I think it would be of interest to see where we sit. And now, if we're going to have software that really does a good job with that we should take advantage of the analytics behind it. And I assume, Mr. Bartel, that we can import this to our decision ed, or that would be possible. So I would say that we probably have technical solutions to take advantage of that. And what I was going to say on this software, and any software, is part of our standard should be when we write contracts, we should always make sure, and I think we've said this on our core software, is that there should be a method to import the data from that, and that should be a part of our contract. And so I assume that we're doing that. And I think Mr. Bartel has said that we've done this before, but I would say, again, this is an opportunity for us to do some analytics. And yes, by the way, those of you that don't know me, I do this for a living. I'm a nerd. Yeah, whatever. But it's still, data is helpful.
All right. I do support the software. I mean, that was just my segue into the other. So apologies if we went off course. And would the coordinator please call the roll?
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yep.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. We're now on to closed session consent items. That would include the appointment of Deanne Soboginski as a 12-month life safety engineer architect assigned to operations, the HR organizational report and addendum, and the following discipline items. H0012X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the first semester of 23-24. H0013X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 2022-23 school year through the first semester of the 23-24 school year. H0014X is expelled for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the first semester of the 23-24 school year. H0015X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the first semester of the 23-24 school year. We will also be approving the following EIAs. B0003, B0004, B0002, G0018, H0011, P0024, P0025, P0026, P0027, P0028, P0029, T0004, T0005, T006. I'm sorry, 0006. There's 3. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Are there any that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing no lights, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll on the items from the closed consent agenda.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. Board member action steps. We have Mr. Phillips will get back just for a comparison where we're at with that. What other action steps do we have from board members?
Do we need to have a discussion about nutrition?
Nutrition?
So we did have our resident expert in the building, and I've just sent her an email because I did think it was, we missed an opportunity to give her the opportunity to prepare something for the board. So Colleen, I think we can partner with Kathy and Mr. Phillips, who she reports up through, to provide, I think, a much more balanced discussion based on her expertise. I don't think we really took advantage of that expertise this evening, and I'd like to give her that opportunity.
That would be wonderful. And if you would, before we have that conversation, if you'd send a link to all the board members to Titan so that they can go to the menus and click on them and just see what we're talking about in terms of nutrition, would that be helpful? Okay. I asked for some sort of communication about the opportunity for the money from Amazon. Is there any way that we can do that? I don't know, on our website or whatever, if you can have a conversation. Dr. Jarrett with our communication department. Does anybody else have? Mr. Connor.
Yeah, I think we had some questions on the comparison to the original estimates of the air conditioning.
I did mention that,
So
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I said that first, that Mr. Phillips was going to follow up with the HVAC estimates.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
I probably wasn't as clear as I could have been. Thank you. Anything else? All right. We wish our best to our presenters at the Tri-Conference. Will be represented by Mr. Zediker, I think, Dr. Reed, and who's the third person speaking, Doctor?
Well, I'm going to be more of the intro person. It's definitely the stars of the show are going to be Dr. Reed and Mr. Zediker talking about some of our efforts to attract and retain a more diverse staff, which is a topic I know that has been near and dear to the hearts of many people in our community, and we are excited to share some of the things that we are doing to attempt to improve in those areas.
I'm going to end by thanking all of our board members on this day, which is National School Board Members Day. And so thank you for serving all your time, because we get paid so much. What? Wait, what? No, truly. I hear it often on the street that people don't tell us enough how much they appreciate the work, and mostly they say, I don't understand why you'd want to do all that for nothing, but I think it's because we all have that motivation for students and for the families in this community, so I thank you. All that said, I'll take recommendation by the board a motion by the board to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Good night. And we won't be together again before Thanksgiving, so happy holidays to you and your families.